Hi, this is Bobby Warren with AfterJournalism.com, and with me is Samantha Ickes. Samantha, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Hey, the reason why I invited you on is because, like me, you are a former journalist. And, when I left journalism, I ended up starting my own business. I do it, search engine optimization. I do a little bit of social media. I do videography. I do a lot of content optimization to get web pages to rank higher. That's kind of become my specialty. And so, I left an industry that I loved to start my own business, but I also left because the industry was changing. And so now, I'm trying to help journalists who are thinking about making that transition, from journalist to something else, which you already did. So what I want to do is I want to talk to you, get a little bit of your background, and then find out what you're doing today and kind of what advice you would have for, journalists who are following a similar path as you. So my first question is, what attracted you to journalism?
So I always just really liked writing, and I just loved the way journalism was portrayed. I guess in media, whether that's mainly just like movies and things like that. So I started thinking about that as a career path because it seemed a little bit easier than being an author. So that's kind of what originally made me start looking into it. Was just because of my love of writing. I felt like that was a way that I could do something that I love while also helping people by kind of keeping them in the loop with local events and local happenings.
So did I hear you correctly? Because I'm over here, hitting buttons and trying to produce the show while we're talking. But did I hear you correctly that you wanted to write movies?
No, I said I wanted to write, but I also liked the way that journalism was like glamorized in
Okay.
like movies and things like
Okay.
that. So I was like, that could be a cool field to explore. So as a little girl, that's what sparked my interest because it was something I considered from age 10. Now, once I got older, I realized it wasn't quite like it was in the movies. And I still wanted to do it, but
Yeah.
my reasonings changed.
Yeah, because, I wanted to be a screenwriter, right?
Very cool, yeah.
Well, my original goal was I wanted to get paid to write. That was my original goal, right?
Same.
So I'm a little bit of a capitalist. But then I really wanted to write movies, and I figured, if I were a successful screenwriter, how many screenplays would I sell in a career? Two, right? So how do you put food on the table the rest of the time?
Yeah.
And so I figured I'd be able to do that with journalism. And so uh, tell us about where you went to school. Well, it looks like you went to Kent State, and what kind of training you got at Kent State.
So the my experience at Kent was phenomenal. It actually was my second choice. I was planning to go to OU, but after I toured Kent's facilities, I was like, wow, this is so cool. They had so many different student magazines, student media that you could get a part of. So that's why I chose Kent. The coursework was a little different than what I had originally thought it would be. I thought I'd be doing a lot of writing all the time, but just because of the nature of today's industry, we also did, photography. We also took film classes and things like that. So it was a lot more than just writing, which is kind of what I thought that I would be doing. We even took a couple broadcast classes as print majors. So it was a little bit of everything.
Yeah, so like when I went to school, it was like, you know, if you were a reporter, that's what you did. You wrote. You
Mhm.
didn't do anything else. If you were a photographer, that is what you did. You didn't do anything else. And I started at a time when, you know, photographers loaded their own film canisters. They shot the film. They had a dark room to develop, the photos and everything. So I'm going back late 80s, early 90s, right? When I got into the field. And so that's the way it was. And so it was difficult that, if you wanted to do anything else, sorry, that was your job.
Hmm.
And so, I'm kind of like a jack of all trades. Remember, I wanted to get into movies, right? So I had one of those big old VHS cameras that you sat on your shoulder and stuff like that. Because I wanted to get into movies. I liked video. I did some volunteer work at a television station, to learn some of that. And so, what you were that was neat that you got the training in, photography, filmmaking or videography as well, because really, today's journalists are almost like digital producers, right? Digital media specialists. And what was it like, when you got into journalism? Like, where did you work, and like, what kind of jobs did you do?
So I started at the Independent in Maslin as a reporter, and it was more general assignments. So I did a little bit of everything. I didn't specifically have a beat, kind of crime and cops, but we were a small staff, so we kind of everybody just helped out where they could. So that's where I started, and that was like in October of 2017. So.
And I should add that Massillon is in Ohio. Well, we know where it is. Maybe not everybody watching does, but and so, did you have to take your own photographs? Did you shoot video?
I didn't have to take my own photographs, but I did shoot video. We had a certain amount of video that, as a newspaper, we needed to produce a month, and I was the one who did most of that, just because I actually had training in it. Whereas my colleagues didn't have any experience in video. We also didn't have anything to edit with, so I used my personal computer to edit the video with just
Yeah.
iMovie since it was free. So that was, an experience for sure.
Yeah. So, what did Gatehouse call that stuff where you had to meet that
Inner
all
Circle,
those?
I think it was called.
What was that?
Inner Circle.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
There's
So
so many videos, so many this, that. Oh, yeah.
yeah, and I was the only one who had any background in that or any training in it, so I did most of the videos.
Yeah, and so because I liked video, I ended up doing a lot of it, and then, like, my buddy Dan Starcher, who was a photographer, liked video too, and others picked it up as well. And that's an interesting thing about journalism because, uh, journalism unions are called guilds, right?
Mhm.
And it's just the power of the guilds have just been eroded over the years. It's just like, I don't know how much power they have anymore, but back in the day, right? If you were a reporter, you were not taking the photograph. You were not, shooting the video. You were not editing the video. You were not uploading the video, to your YouTube channel or whatever, or your website. So all these different responsibilities were, there were lines of demarcation. But when you get to these smaller newspapers or newspapers where, you don't have either a union or a strong union, then all those lines get blurred and it's almost like you have to do everything. Was there ever any tension? Like, was Massillon, it had a guild, right?
It did, yeah.
Was there any issues about the responsibilities that the reporters had to do or anything? If you're comfortable talking about it, if not,
Yeah. I mean, not that I'm aware of. I'm going to be honest, I didn't really pay too much attention to the union. I mean, I was 21 when I started there, and I
Mhm.
was 23 23, I think, when 24 maybe when we when I stopped. So
Yeah.
I didn't really pay attention to those types of things. Now I probably now as I've gotten older, I realize the importance of those things. But when I
Yeah.
first got in the industry, it wasn't something that I paid attention to.
Right. And it's one of those things where um, the unions serve their function, and without them, I think things would be a lot worse.
Definitely.
But um, however, the my issue with them is I'm basically a glorified freelancer, and there's try the unions nationally are trying to pass legislation that would hamper my work as a freelancer, but that's not the we're not here to discuss that, but that's an issue I have with unions, but I do see their value. So after Massillon, then did you move to I was going to say the Daytona Beach. That's where I started, in Daytona Beach at the News Journal
Okay.
there, but then you moved over to the Daily Record after Massillon.
Yeah, so I actually got laid off from Maslin.
Oh,
And but luckily, I had some great local editors. They were aware that a reporter at the Daily Record was going to be leaving, so I ended my time at the Independent on a Friday and started at the Daily Record on that next Monday. So I didn't miss out on any work. I was very lucky, especially because that was in 2020. So I would have been jobless at the heat of the pandemic.
yeah. So that whole, like, what was it like? Because I was already, like, you know 2 years into my business, but what was it like starting at the Daily Record in Worcester, Ohio, during the pandemic?
Yeah, that was interesting. Largely because I was there from like April to the end of the year, and I think I met my coworkers. Like I met like two of them in person. Everybody else I saw almost daily, but through video. So that was an interesting transition. But it ended up being that the editor that was my editor at the Independent also moved over to the Daily Record. So it
Uh-huh.
felt very familiar since I was working with the
Yeah.
same editor. So that was nice.
So we used to have that 9 o'clock meeting, which I hated. Like, I just let me do my job. I hated that.
Yeah, I think that's like at 8 or something. They were. I think they might have been earlier than 9. Maybe it was 9.
Oh my.
They were about an hour long every day. Yeah.
It's like, to me, that just takes too much time out of production. Like,
It did take a lot of time. It also helped us stay connected since we were all working virtually. So I mean, there are pros and cons to it.
yeah, yeah. Like, it was just one of those things where you got to be there at 9, and then you'll have a meeting at like 7, 8 o'clock at night. I'm just like, just let me make my own schedule. I'll get the work
Mhm.
done. But so when you worked as a journalist, and how long were you in journalism? As professionally.
Yeah. So I mean, not terribly long, I guess, because I started full time in October of 2017, and I was done by the end of 2020. So a little over 3 years.
And what did you like about journalism?
I really liked that every day was different. You were constantly covering different things. There were different events happening, different places to go, different people to meet. So that part of it was really cool. I got to meet just a lot of interesting people, and I really liked telling their stories. Yeah, so I guess that would be it.
Yeah, I that's one of the things I appreciated, because I live in Worcester. I started Worcester Media Group after journalism is like one of my side projects. But you, like, during the pandemic, you had written a story about a local restaurant that had some type of sign, like, on its door or window,
Oh yeah.
related to masks. And every like the pandemic, was continues to be, a dividing issue. And what I appreciated about your writing is that you basically told the story, right? You didn't put your opinion in it. You you let the owner of the restaurant say what he wanted to say. you let those who are offended by his sign, and they'll have to they'll have to do a search for it. And maybe I'll link it in the comment section. But like you just I you handle it like a true professional,
Well, thank you.
like you were a longtime veteran, and I was just so impressed with how you handled that. And then, as time went on, we got to work a little bit together where, like one of my clients had something interesting. I'd say, hey, what do you think? Or, you had covered the Main Street Worcester, you
Mhm.
covered Main Street Worcester, and uh, I eventually was invited onto that board. And so, I got to see you in action some more, and I just always did a good job.
Well, thank you. It's very important to me to let others tell the story, and not to insert my own opinion.
That that is so commendable because, like, one of the things that I was going to ask you when we were talking about your education at Kent State and training was, when I went through and I studied journalism, I started at what we called Harvard by the Highway, which was Daytona Beach Community College. Now it's Daytona State University. We also call it Southern Halifax Institute of Technology, but that's a different acronym. Uh, so I studied at Daytona Beach Community College, and later at UCF. We called it You Can't Finish, but it was University of Central Florida. And all of my journalism professors, and even when I would later transfer to what became Cincinnati Christian University, all of my journalism professors were old school. It's like you don't add your opinion, you don't color things. I mean, it's just like you just play it straight down the middle. And so that was drilled into my head. And I'm glad that's what I was impressed with your writing is that, we're here to tell other people's stories, and I think that's what you did and didn't get caught, up in like, okay, here's my agenda. Because I tell you what, the Daily Record didn't pay me to promote my agenda. You know, they paid me to go out and find out what the stories in the communities were.
Mhm.
And so I always appreciated that about your writing. So like you, I liked that every day was different. It's like I'm a lifelong learner. I got paid to learn, right? And but like also like me, you left journalism, and just why did you decide to leave?
It really became a decision. I mean, I don't even know that I really thought about it. I just decided I was going to leave right after getting laid off. Yeah, they did find me another job, and that was great. And I am we're super grateful to the local editors. I know Gannett took over with everything, but really the local editors are amazing. So I was super thankful for that. But there was like 3 weeks or so where I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know what I was going to do. I had no backup plan. And that just was super taxing on my mental health, not knowing what was next. So I got lucky with the Daily Record, and I was able to kind of take my time searching for a job, and I thankfully found something that I'm really enjoying and I really love. But yeah, I just needed something that was a little bit more stable and where there was more room to grow.
The interesting thing about, journalists is we have to be prepared for everything, right? We
Mhm.
might have to be able to, deal with the county's multi-million dollar budget today. Then tomorrow, if the governor's coming through, we got to know what state issues to talk about, and like, I know with you, with one of my clients that, the congressman was visiting the business, and you
Mhm.
came and learned about agriculture and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So there's a lot going on. You need to have the appropriate wardrobe for the appropriate audience, right? I
Hmm.
mean, you just can't be going in t-shirt and jeans, you know. You have to know a lot. You have to know a lot about a lot of different things. But when you look at the pay, the pay, the pay is really not good. It's not commensurate with your education. You do a lot of things. You work all crazy hours. You know, back, I don't know. I don't know how Gatehouse, Gannett slash Gannett, which I call GateNet. I don't know how they deal with breaking news now, but if there was a fire at midnight, somebody was going out, right? If there was a fatal crash 2 in the morning, somebody was going out. And it's like we always tried to be on the scene. We did not wait on press releases. We did not wait to download a report from the computer. It was just out there, in the field. And so there's a lot expected of journalists, but the pay is not doesn't always, match what you do. Like there's some crazy. You want to talk about any of that, or you just gonna laugh and say let's move on?
Yeah, I mean, you are expected to do a lot as a journalist. We didn't have to go out at 2 in the morning or anything, but it definitely wasn't 9 to 5, and that's something that was difficult for me. I need my downtime. I need my time to do I have a lot of hobbies. I need to be able to decompress and step away from work. And I guess I didn't really feel that with journalism. It felt like I was constantly on call. I always needed to be
Oh,
prepared to edit my story last minute if my editor called, or be with her on the phone while she walked me through some of the changes that she made.
right,
So, and that's just how it was. I guess it's just the nature of the industry. You want to make sure everything is correct and accurate. But for me,
right.
it wasn't worth all the time that it was going to take. Yeah. So that was another thing that led to my decision to leave.
Yeah, because like people don't realize that journalism is not a job; it is a lifestyle,
It really is. Yeah.
and you really have to embrace it to do it well. And my wife and I were out eating dinner one night, and we leave, and we hear the tornado sirens. So she's like, "Oh, you're gonna have to go to work, aren't you?" I'm like, "Yep." So I drop her off at home, right? We just got done having a meal. Drop her off at home. I call the captain at the sheriff's office and I say, "Hey, I hear the tornadoes going, sirens going off. What's going on? Any damage?" He says, "You're asking the wrong question." I'm like, "Well, what do I need to ask you?" He's like, "You need to ask me if there's a standoff in Worcester." I'm like, "Hey, is there a standoff in Worcester?" "Yep." And so anyway, the storm's going on. Me and the photographer Dan Starcher was a photographer at the time, later became a reporter. So we go to this standoff, right? Police yelling at us to get out of the way, get out of the line of fire, and if you talk to Dan, the only memorable thing from that night was somebody brought in a bunch of roast beef sandwiches, and we had to watch all the police and first responders eat while we were sitting there hungry. Uh, that's all he remembers. But yeah, so we were out late. A guy was drunk, had a gun, and like didn't turn out to be anything serious. But again, it's just like it's not 9 to 5, and
Yeah.
uh, you got to adjust to that lifestyle. So, what are you doing? Here we go. That's going to be an edit. That's going to be an edit. All right. So let me ask you,
Okay.
what are you doing after journalism?
Now I am the social media and video specialist at New Camp. We're a teardrop manufacturer. We're actually the largest in the world, located in Sugar Creek, Ohio. So yeah, that's what I do. It's been a lot of fun. I manage all our social media accounts. I think we have 5 platforms. I also manage the blog. I record videos and edit them and post them on our YouTube. And I get to do some traveling, which is really cool.
Yeah, and it seems like whenever you're traveling, you take these little side trips and take in some beautiful sights from around the country.
Yeah, I plan my trips very strategically. I plan out the entire trip. It's like, okay, I've got a 30-minute window here. What am I going to do to fill those 30 minutes? So I try and take advantage of it the best I can. But most recently, I went to Arizona, and my company did allow me to stay for an extra day so I could visit the Grand Canyon.
Yeah, and the photos you shared were beautiful. So let me ask you, like, what was it like the first time you got paid to travel?
It was incredible. It was last year. I went to Colorado, flew into Denver, and then drove to Grand Junction near the Colorado National Monument. So I got to. Since I had a 4-hour drive, I planned 3 stops along the way of things to check out. So I saw St. Mary's Glacier and Rifle State Falls, and it was just I couldn't believe it, honestly. But I'm like, wow, I'm doing all these things for free because I stopped at parks where you don't have to pay anything. So it was just like, yeah,
Yeah,
it was really cool. I loved it. I've gone to 4 trips so far, and hopefully more. Anytime they're like, who can go to this? I'm like, pick me. I don't have a family. I'm not married, so
yeah,
it's easy for me to go and leave.
yeah.
So yeah, I take advantage of that when I can.
I remember when a client, I would drive to Oberlin for some meetings, and he'd say, "Okay, we're going to have a quarterly retreat, and it's going to be in Dallas." And so it was like, wow, like I had attended I had received a fellowship to go study healthcare journalism, but it was a little bit different when a client's saying, "Okay, I'm going to fly you out, to Dallas for a retreat." That was kind of interesting. And then he said, "I'm going to need you in New Orleans," right? So I was like, wow. And so, like you, I flew out to New Orleans and stayed an extra day, um, so the client picked up, I forget how many days, like maybe 3 days, the client picked up at the hotel. We paid for the fourth and just got to see some sights because we were working my wife took my wife out there. We work in a trade show, and we want, like you, like, okay, we're not at the trade show. What are we going to do now? I'm going to ask you what advice would you give college students in J school? But before that, like probably for 2 years, like I missed journalism like every single day. Like, do you miss it, or it's like, eh?
So I guess I'll be honest and say not really. I I love where I work. The company is super awesome, and while my local editors were fantastic, you know, the big corporate company who owns all the papers,
Yeah,
they don't know who I am. They don't care about me, you know.
no,
Whereas here, like the founder will just stop by and say hello. The CEO will come and talk to us, and they know who we are, and it's super cool to just be part of that kind of culture.
right. I worked for a great um managing editor, Lance White, great editor, a news editor, Janine Kendall, and I loved working for them. And when Lance retired and Janine had taken on a new position even before Gatehouse bought the Dix family's newspaper holdings, but it was just different. Not having Janine there, not having Lance there. You know, Janine was just such a great editor, supervisor, friend. She hates when I say, "Oh, hey, here's my boss," or "Hey, I work for her." She says, "No, we work together." And man, she's just awesome. But so anyway, what advice would you give college students in J school?
Yeah. When I was going to school, everybody told me, don't do it. It's a hard industry. And I don't want to discourage anybody from going into journalism because I think local journalism is extremely important. We
Yeah.
need those kinds of reporters who are going to tell the truth, tell the story, and they're not going to let their opinions get in the way of telling that story. Um, but I do think you need to be, I guess, prepared for it to be a lifestyle because it does take a lot of your time up. It's a lot of hard work. It can be rewarding. It can be fun, but it's difficult. And to be honest, people aren't really always all that nice to journalists. so, so you need to have a bit of a thick skin too. Um,
Yeah.
so I just feel like you just need to be prepared for those types of things if you're going to go into the industry. So absolutely do it. I gained a lot in my experience, I think, as a journalist, even though it was only 3 years. But it is a tough industry, so you just have to be prepared for that.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying, how important the work is, because we need local journalists,
Absolutely. Just
but
wasn't for me.
I no longer want to be that one. It's just like, so while I miss journalism, but then when you hear, police siren or fire truck or ambulance or whatever, it's like, I don't have to worry about that anymore.
hmm
A storm comes through. I don't have to go out and do a story,
Yeah.
And it's like, so uh eventually I just stopped missing it. It's like, yeah, I like this. And
hmm
so what about like those who are in the industry and they're looking to leave? What advice do you have for those journalists?
Yeah. So for me, it wasn't really all that much of a difficult decision, just because I could feel myself kind of just I don't know if jaded's the right word, but I was just getting burnt out. I think that's kind of what I mean. I was getting a little burnt out with what I was doing, and it was just it was just difficult on me to be working as much as I did, and just the nature of the industry. Like I said, people aren't always nice to journalists. So for me, it wasn't a hard decision. But if it is a hard decision for you, just really think about what the pros and cons are before leaving. It doesn't hurt to explore other things, if you're not sure. I took some online classes to see if social media marketing specifically was something I would enjoy. So I think it's just really taking a good inner look and seeing, would I be happier doing something else? I guess that's the advice that I have.
Yeah, so what's interesting where you and I differ is I left and started my own business, and you left and went to work, you know, d- for an employer,
hmm
and but you're doing stuff that you enjoy. You're working for a company that you want to show up. Like when I worked at the Daily Record, I did want to show up every day. It was when I was there, it was a great place to work, and then after it got sold, it eh, wasn't the same. But I really loved showing up every day. I didn't consider it work, and what have you. But like I think, whether somebody's going to follow my path and become, start their own business or do freelancing, because there I I took this online course, and the person who created the course, I think she earned over like $400,000 last year, earned more writing. She's a freelance writer and she is crushing it. And it's like, now she is a workaholic, right? She works hard, she works fast, she works hard. Uh, she earns, it's not like, it's just not gravy. But not everybody wants to be their own boss, because I don't get vacation, I don't get sick time, I don't get I pay for every bit of my health care coverage. I don't have any 401k match or anything like that. But, you know, with what I'm able to make, I can fund all of that myself. And so, it's worked for me, but it doesn't work for everybody. And it's nice to know that, journalists like yourself, there are other things you can do outside of journalism, you know, social media. When I was getting into journalism, public relations was that was like the evil one, right? That's like it was terrible. It was the enemy. It's like,
Yeah.
but but you can get into public relations, social media management. You can even start your own business doing that.
Mhm.
There are just so many different things because you need a lot of skills to be a journalist. So,
Yeah, it was actually some of my skills that I gained as a journalist that set me apart from other people who applied for the position that I did, because I didn't necessarily have any social media experience, but I did have video experience. I had the interviewing experience, which helped with the videoing, and I also had that writing background, and that was something they were lacking in the marketing department before me. Was nobody really had any writing or copy editing skills. So I do a lot of that. So I do still get to write, which is cool.
yeah. And that's awesome that like all the all the skills you learn transfer, and that education's not lost because you're
Not
using
at
all
all.
that. All right, so that's about all I have. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Yeah, it was
We've
nice
tried to
talking to you.
we tried to schedule this months and months and months ago, and then
Yeah.
I got crazy busy, and then I decided, I'm going to take time every day and focus on my after journalism website, which, for like journalists who are looking to leave the industry, right? This after journalism is basically my affiliate marketing website. I'm trying to make, a little bit of extra money there. If you sign up for the courses I've taken, if you sign up for the tools I use, I'll earn a little bit of commission. Um, trying to build my YouTube channel up. That's going to be a monumental task. But if you get to 1,000 subscribers and like 4,000 watched hours, like within 4 months or something, then you can get your channel monetized, right? So it's like, so that's what I'm trying to do, just so I have something on the side. And so I appreciate your time. Is there anything else you want to add?
I don't think so. Thanks for inviting me. I hope I hope what I said was okay.
It, so you probably got this during an interview. You're interviewing somebody for a newspaper story, and it's like, is that what you wanted to hear? And it's like, I wanted to hear whatever you wanted to tell me. I was like,
Right, right, yeah.
I, di- I didn't write this. I didn't pre-write this story before I
Yeah,
came here. You are the story, right? So
absolutely.
no,
I'm not used to being the one interviewed, so that was different. But
yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. And so I don't know if I put the blooper in, but you were perfect.
well, thank you.
But
I appreciate that.
I I had a typo in one of my banners. It's like, oh no, we got to stop this thing. But maybe I'll throw it in, maybe I won't. But hey, thanks everybody for watching. Hey, where can people follow your company on social media?
All of our handles is at New Camp RV. So we're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, LinkedIn, and YouTube.
So how do you spell New Camp?
NUCAMP.
All right. Well,
Yeah,
thanks a lot. Take care.
absolutely. Yeah, thank you.